Well, welcome, Rebel fam. This is On the Rebel production, Dope People, in which we have real talk with dope people. And this month we're featuring marijuana mamas. And we have an excellent guest for you today, Susan Soares. But before we get into that, we're gonna do our usual thing, go through some headlines, things going on in the cannabis industry. But first, let's check in with our wonderful host. Jacoby, how you doing?
What's good, Peter? I echo that. Oscar was on point today. That music selection was just hitting like all my favorite artists, starting with Chronics. I'm here for it, Oscar. Appreciate you.
Lulu, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm back in Oregon visiting the parents. It's cold. For the first time, I'm wearing a jacket, so
oh wow, yeah,
nice, yeah.
You were on Mexico life. You were spoiled for a little bit.
That's true.
I hope the pollen didn't get you too hard in New York.
I don't get the allergies in Mexico with the succulents, but I get the allergies here in Oregon with the pollen from all the trees and it's all green, so green.
Let us suffer in our mutual downing of anti-allergy medication. It's my first time in a while having allergies, so it sucks.
Bro, I got these bad. I got the worst allergies.
Oh, really? Yeah, we learn something new every day. I thought Jacoby was fine. But all right. Going into the headlines for this week, there's a lot of stuff going down. And luckily, I was able to jump into Susan's Clubhouse this morning, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, and catch all these headlines. It's a great resource for me moving forward. I'm happy to find out about it. But one topic that came out and stood out to me today that I didn't know about was Ron Paul and some other senators sponsored a bill to get CBD products regulated by the FDA as a supplement. For me, I think it's gonna, if they could do it this way with CBD, it's not comprehensive. They're not talking about all cannabinoids and hemp-produced products or cannabinoid produced products. If they're going to do it piecemeal, cannabinoid by cannabinoid, it's just going to be a bureaucratic nightmare. But at least it shows that you have some bipartisanship. And who knows, it'll probably end up being regulated like a supplement. But how do you guys feel about it?
I mean, just off the jump, did you say that there's people from multiple parties that agree on something in 2021?
It's always cannabis. That's the only thing.
That in itself is a little mini miracle. Like, I feel like in this political climate, everything is so polarizing. So that in itself is a pretty interesting dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say it is a bipartisan issue. And in fact, this week, California state legislature passed a CBD and pet bill that was bipartisan.
Oh, wow. Well, since you bring up California, this week we had a big move in social equity in the movement, in that a lot of organizations based around social equity in California have gotten together to issue a statement and some bills to introduce to the Senate. The first bill is Senate Bill 603, which would help offset marijuana business license fees for qualified social equity applicants. A huge win if it goes through. As we all know, social equity applicants need money to start their businesses, but I hope in that bill there be some amendments for mentorship and such, because money doesn't mean anything if you don't have the wherewithal to do something with it. But it does go a far way in and of itself. And then the second bill is Senate Bill 398, which would establish a new oversight committee to watch how social equity grants are used. With the additional board, I don't know how the system works in California, but an additional oversight committee to see how the social equity grants are used. And I figure if you're going to be giving them out, there would be some oversight. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe Susan has more to say on that one.
Well, it's a big issue, and it's super important. I think that it might be a problem for Gavin Newsom and his recall. if he doesn't take care of it, because nothing's happening. One of the things that really shocked me in this article that I think you're referencing, the governor's California comeback plan has $126 million set aside for funding for police enforcement against the traditional market, and only 15 million for social equity programs. That's backwards in my mind.
Yeah.
Completely backwards.
But what would the oversight, do we know what the oversight committee would do? Like, what is that creation of that organization? What would it do?
It would audit who gets the social equity applicant license and if they're like real or not. And if things like that, I would assume. But yeah, I didn't go in deep into the bill. I was just happy to see some movement in that direction for California. As one of the first states to go online, they didn't, social equity wasn't even part of the conversation during all that. So
I would say that it's obvious in every state that has social equity that there is nobody, I won't say nobody, there is not enough people that are actually auditing what happens with those licenses. Because so many times you hear stories of people that were kind of just used as a figurehead and kind of got screwed out of a deal, or some predatory lending. Some BS has happened from Massachusetts to Colorado, not as much Colorado because they didn't have a social equity license. In New Jersey, all over the place. So I'm not surprised. California is probably one of the worst places where that was abused. So I don't know how they audit them or how the infrastructure is, but I'm glad that they at least realized that they need to enforce it.
and on that note, we were recently made aware of some potential provisions for the New York social equity licensees, in that they will be potentially coupled to a certification called the Minority Business and Women certification, which, if that's the case, it's a huge alpha or advantage or piece of knowledge to know if you're in New York to be applying for this MTWB certification. So, yeah. Finally, going into our last headline for the day, the DEA is finally allowing other facilities to grow marijuana for testing for research purposes. So right now it's all grown in Mississippi. I hear a lot of complaints that it's very low quality and not really done well, and doesn't represent the weed that's on the market. So a lot of the research is kind of not applicable. Now that they're allowing, they've opened the process to allow growers to apply, and these would be schools and universities. Who knows if they'll let corporations come in and partner in that kind of way. But it does show that the DEA and these federal organizations are opening up to cannabis in a major way.
Poor Mississippi, there goes their monopoly. They held that for so long.
Sure, they're gonna allow like Kansas to come on board now and grow instead. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a problem how bad that cannabis was and how long it's taken them I think they just gave one today. I was looking for who they gave it to, but I think they did issue one today, and hopefully Dr. Sue Sisley is going to get the second one. But also there's the complication of the FDA just came up with a new guideline that a standard dose is 10 milligrams of THC as far as research goes, which is cool. 5 milligrams, right? Yeah. That's right. It should be 10. That's I put 10 in my head. But the problem is that they're not talking about the other 399 cannabinoids.
Yeah.
So, what are those ratios? It's kind of, baby steps.
Baby steps. Yeah, that was we got in on that one last week. Yeah, we'll see how these things go. I mean, at least the conversation is evolving. It's something that we've wanted for a very long time, and it's finally here. But without further ado, Susan, let's get into your story. Maybe you could give us a preview into who you are.
Yeah. Let's get into it. So, really honored to have Susan on here today. Funny thing about Susan, I had actually been in her Clubhouse room many times. but only really associated her with the state of cannabis. It was just like the voice of this brand. And then Lulu actually brought up her book when we were talking about some really interesting marijuana mamas. And it didn't even click to me till like a couple days before. And I like connected the two and I was like, oh, wow, this woman does a lot of things. So I'm really excited about it. We've had some marijuana mamas, but now we finally have a marijuana grandma. And I'm really excited to have her on the show. Susan, thank you for joining us. Love the background. How you doing?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is a bud, a flower of a plant that I grew, which I consumed rapidly.
Right on. Also a grower. Cool. In your backyard?
In my backyard, and I actually came out of the green closet last 420, not this year, but last year on nextdoor.com. And so now I have a bunch of my neighbors growing in their backyards as well.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Nextdoor is a crazy place to come out of the green closet. Like there's a lot of drama in the Nextdoor app, I have to say.
I was advised by my friends and families and attorney friends that was a terrible idea, but I normally have an event at Coachella during 420 and I was pretty depressed and I was like, you know what, fuck that. I'm gonna just, I put a post on Nextdoor, free pot brownies, anyone? And that thread blew up.
Nextdoor, I feel like it's like Facebook 10 years ago. Like everybody is so active out there. I believe it. All right, cool. So came out of the green closet to the neighbors a year ago. I think you have kind of interesting journey through your beginning stages of cannabis, right? Starting as like a Mormon church leader and going through some things that really kind of like brought you into the cannabis world. Can you just give us the overview of like how you found the plant and kind of like the beginning stages of your journey?
Sure. Thank you for asking. I was a very strict Mormon and raised in a military family. And I was 31 and I remember calling the cops on these teenage kids because they were smoking out of a pipe. And I called the cops and I was like, hey, these teenagers are smoking drugs. You need to come and arrest them. And the cops are like, well, is it pot or is it crack? And I said, it's drugs. And so that's where my head was. And long story short, I sustained a head injury. I got a concussion while I was doing my job in the church. And I ended up with a migraine that lasted 2 years long. I was just desperate for help that Western medicine couldn't give me. And my neighbor was growing cannabis in her garden. And she suggested that I try it. And I knew that I would lose my family and my entire community if I were to try it and continue to use it. And I didn't really have a choice. So I did. And 6 weeks later, I was migraine free and I haven't stopped consuming since. That was 30 years ago.
Wow. I want to say that I'm not surprised that so many people are so strongly against it until they're desperate. And when that desperation hits, you're like, look, I'll try anything. I'm willing to like remove some of these barriers I had from society or personally or whatever those barriers were. And sometimes it's pets, right? Some people's pets is that thing, or it's a family member or like their own medical condition. And it's just it still amazes me how powerful that like point that changing point is. So how did your family and your community accept that? How did that change your life?
They didn't. I didn't hear, my parents wouldn't talk to me for almost a decade, and all of my friends turned their backs on me. And yeah, no, it was really hard. And you mentioned people don't get it until something happens to them or someone close to them. It makes me really sad because when I run into lawmakers that are so against it, I feel bad because I know that probably they're going to have a loved one need it, and it's like, come on, open your eyes now. You can help people now. Learn from others. Listen to us. we're not just saying this. It really legitimately saved my life.
And what about the conversations you have with other people in your lives now? I know that, I mean, first of all, I didn't 10 years to kind of be shunned over this plant. It's just, that's crazy. How do you approach these conversations with like the next people in your community? Like you had to regrow, regenerate your family and community. Like, did you come clean with new people? Like, how did you rebuild from that, if at all?
I really didn't. I threw myself into, once I was healthy, I just threw myself into raising my children and dedicated myself. I promised myself that once I raised my children, that I would dedicate my life to changing minds that thought like me, because I felt like I was in a unique position, having gone from one extreme to finding the plant and having it save my life. I felt like I was in the best position to help change people's minds.
And what about your kids? Did you tell them? When did you tell them?
I didn't tell them. I didn't know. I mean, at the time, it was still very illegal. This was pre Prop 215, the Compassionate Use Act in California. So I didn't tell them. And it was, I didn't know where to even get cannabis besides from my neighbor. But I got some seeds and I planted them, and I hid the plants inside the bushes in the backyard. I used to go back every single day and cut the points off of the leaves so that nobody could tell what it was. And it was rough for a while. There was no such thing as tinctures and edibles, and it was a different time.
And then what about like, how did you ultimately talk to your kids about it? I know you kept it on the DL for a long time, but like, did they find out? What did they find out?
Well, I guess this is I'm kind of jumping the gun, but this is kind of why I wrote the book, because it's like, if you think you're hiding your cannabis use from your children, you're not. They know. And my son, he turned 18. It was his 18th birthday. And he came up to me and he said, "Mom, I know you smoke weed. I'm 18. I've got some pot. Can we smoke some weed together?" And I was like, yes, we can. Yay. So that was a great moment. And yeah, we started talking about it, but it was still, it was a different time. The stigma was strong, and it wasn't really anything that you wanted your children to be able to share with their teachers and their friends. It was still a different time.
I mean, it seems like that was an exciting moment for you, but I want to know, like, what emotions, like smoking a J with your kid when they just turned 18 and they basically just said, "Hey, I've known you've been doing this," when you thought you kind of had a secret this whole time. Was that like a weight off your shoulders? Were you excited? Were you nervous? Because now they're, smoking weed. Like, what were the emotions in that first J? That's like every kid's dream, by the way.
No, it was great. It was great. And he had his best friend with him, and I was the cool mom for quite some time. Yeah, it was great. It was a lot of fun, and they trusted me, and they were able to come to me with some of their life problems and stuff because of it. So it was great.
Oh, that's an interesting point. I get the cool mom part, but I didn't consider the fact that just that gesture actually opened up other conversations that probably had nothing to do with weed, that now they trusted you.
Yeah, I mean, cannabis is a really interesting plant. It really opens your mind, and it kind of opens you up for suggestion. I feel like the munchies and the paranoia and stuff. I feel like people have been told that you're supposed to get the munchies and you're supposed to be paranoid, and that it's not really true. You can really work through that, but it is mind opening. And because of that, I was able to shed a lot of the things that I believed in, being raised for 33 years in the Mormon church. And, you know, I was just, I think it would have taken me 5 times longer to open my mind if it wasn't for cannabis.
It almost like begs the question of like, what closed our minds in the first place?
Yeah, we're told no, 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 all of our lives when we're kids, you know, don't do that. We're told that at school, we're told that at church, we're told that from our parents. Don't draw out of the lines, you know.
Yeah, that's a fact. All right, cool. So I want to switch over now to your journey kind of like as a Canna-Grandma. We kind of talked about what it's like to be a Canna mom, and how that kind of like goes in your life cycle. But then your kids have kids, right? And now you have at least 10, 15, 20 years of experience with the plant. You probably have a different perspective than when your kids were that same age. Talk to me about the relationship as a grandmother and a cannabis consumer.
Yeah, so I ran it by them. I didn't do it without, you know, talking to them about it, but I wanted to be very open and upfront with my grandchildren. You know, being raised in a strict household, I don't know if you have known any Mormons or ex-Mormons, but when
From
they
Colorado, we got
right,
plenty.
they get, because they're so in such a strict environment, when they have a chance to let their hair down, they're some of the wildest people ever because of the strictness, right? So it's like, look, this is just matter of fact. Grandma has cases of bongs. Grandma's got cases of jars of weed. Grandma has plants growing in her backyard, and it just is what it is. And we just talk to them matter of factly, and it's no big thing, and that's the way it should be. You know, it's just grandma's medicine, it's grandma's recreation, it's no big thing.
Yeah, I threw it in the chat, but I actually used to buy weed from the kid, the Mormon kid at our school.
That's right.
Yeah, so how has that been received by your kids? Like, they're the parents, right? Like, what was their opinion on this?
Yeah, well, I mean, I ran it by them, and they agreed that that's the way that we should handle it. They don't really consume in front of their kids. I'm not even sure if their kids know that they consume, but they certainly know that grandma does. So, and in the book, the kicker in the book towards the end, the second to the last page, the family is having a family barbecue, and the grown-ups are drinking wine, and the kids are playing hide and seek, and grandma's way down, far away from the kids, but she's smoking a joint, and it's going downwind. I don't say the words in the book, but so I leave it really, really subtle, so that you know, if the kid notices and wants to talk about it, or if the parent wants to talk about it, they can talk about it, or they can just, you know, flip through and you know, but it's there. Grandma's smoking a joint.
And how has the reception been? Have you heard from other parents or grandparents that have read the book?
Oh yeah, it's been great. I'm so glad that I wrote this book. I did not mean to write the book, but it's really important. You know, like I said, if you think that if you're consuming cannabis and you think your kids don't know, the only thing you're doing is you're teaching them that we keep secrets from each other, and that's not what you want. You know, you've got to talk to your kids about all the grown-up stuff.
Yeah, especially with the states that have, you know, become legal. I'm here in Oregon and I have a goddaughter who's almost 15, and she's just totally down with it. You know, like there's no hiding. She sometimes uses it for medication as her ADHD, and she's so like sophisticated in her understanding as a teenager about, you know, how it affects her, why she takes it, and she's able to verbalize so many things that, you know, I'm in my 40s, so, you know, I still come from that generation where it's like you're still hiding. So and that's why when I saw your book, Susan, I was like, this is the perfect gift to give all of these new parents that are in these, you know, who have been recreational, you know, smokers and consumers, and are now having I've seen these discussions happening between, you know, the parents about like, well, how are we going to handle this? So I think seeing your book, I think it's such a great resource. And thank you so much for writing that, because, you know, there's there's not much information out there on how to have these conversations. You know, we had the dare pamphlets, and now we have the, I don't know, anti-dare or the dare to know, you know, resources that you're providing. So thank you so much, Susan.
Yeah, thank you. It's really, I don't know why we're afraid to talk to our children. You know, their kids are smart. You know, they really are, and we need to talk to them about big ideas and big issues. We learn from our kids, and just we've just got to be honest. You know, not every, I'm interested in learning more about your niece, but in the book. I've had a few activists that are upset with me because in the book, the grandma talks to the grandson about his brain and how his brain is growing and how he needs to just feed his brain with good things like, you know, so it can grow strong like the things in the garden. And I realize that some children need cannabis, but in general, it's best that they wait, and they need to know why, you know. And I believe that talking to children about cannabis is the gateway to talking to children about all kinds of grown-up things. People are afraid to talk to their kids about sex. They're, you know, afraid to talk to their kids about pharmaceutical drugs. We need to talk to them about these things. They're smart. They'll understand, and they'll do better in life if we just talk to them and listen.
Yeah, it's like that reverse psychology, right? It's like the more you tell them
Yes.
no, the more they're gonna want to do it. I mean, I was definitely
Yes.
that kid. But I was lucky that when I was interested in trying cannabis and also psychedelics, it was my family members that actually sat with me. So, and I think that was a really awesome experience to have an elder there with you when you're trying to do something a little bit different. So I'm huge advocate also of, you know, not giving kids enough credit, and hiding things is never a good idea, no matter what age you are.
Lulu, I also caught on to something you said that I think is really dope, that the 14-year-old, I think you said, that's in your life, not only are they able to talk about it, but because of that, they're actually able to like explain why and when and how they actually use it. And I know plenty of people that are my friends that just get high as fuck, and they don't actually know that they're like running from something or trying to reduce stress or because they're in pain, and they're just not even that aware of it, right? It's like a lot of same thing with food, right? Sometimes once you start to think about how you feel after you eat that certain thing, it's like you can't not think about that again, and you can't go back sometimes. So I think just another cosign to that I really love is the fact that if you talk to them early, they're actually better at using it than we are, you know?
And she's very intentional about it, right? She's
Right.
like, you know, and I'm talking to like a 14-year-old, and she's just like, you know, sometimes I have rage, and instead of wanting to like feel upset about it as I'm decompressing, you know, I will have I'll smoke a little bit, and it'll totally like help me calm down. And I was like, I wish adults would talk to each other like that, you know, and understand tools, as you know, plant medicine are tools that can help, and understand why they use it. So I was like, this is kind of cool, you know. And I know her mom has always been very a very transparent person. So I think like just seeing this as an experiment that happened with being a transparent parent has been really, really, really cool to see this little human like communicating and better than most adults that I know.
That's amazing. You have a very, it sounds like you've got a really great family.
And Eugene's kind of interesting. It's kind of like this hippie utopia where all the things that are like of the rage these days has always been kind of practiced here. And I took it for granted for a really long time, but I'm, you know, like I always say, I'm always like the prodigal daughter returns back to all the things. And it's been cool.
You know, she's back in Oregon when she throws the flannel on.
I just bought some Birkenstocks too.
Oh boy.
All right, I actually want to ask a question more on kind of like the business side of this. When we were in pre-production, you said that you think, I think this is actually a lie, you're not the greatest businesswoman, but you have some things that I think are actually like particularly interesting and well done on your side that I want to kind of get into. Most of the time we kind of go more business on this show. We've been, you know, talking about motherhood a lot, but specifically I want to talk about the process of writing a book. Right? Like that's a revenue stream that kind of keeps on giving. Can you talk to me about like, how did you actually like write the book? You know what I mean? Did you sit down at your kitchen table and say, let me think of like how I would talk to a 5-year-old, and like talk about like literally writing it?
Well, you know, the book pretty much wrote itself because it's a true story about myself and my grandson. So that part was pretty easy. The thing that was difficult was doing the research, and you know, it was shocking to me. Even like third generation growers in Northern California didn't talk to their kids about cannabis. And I spent a year talking to all these different parents about whether or not, you know, I'd ask them, how do you talk to your kids about cannabis? And 90% of the parents said, oh, I don't. It's like, what? I guess we need this book. You know, I had a conversation with a woman who got together with a group of her friends every Saturday, and they get drunk in front of their kids every Saturday. And they had a little toddler that started drinking at 18 months, and at 8 years old was a full-blown alcoholic. And I said, wouldn't that be so different if you guys were consuming cannabis instead? So, you know, the research was really, really difficult, but inspiring that I needed to do it. And I did a lot of research on what it meant to be a self-published first-time author so that I had realistic expectations. It is not a moneymaker. First-time authors rarely make any money. You're lucky if you sell 200 books over the lifetime of the book. So I went into it knowing that. One of the interesting things in doing this was I found out that not only is it hard to be a first-time author, but if you're going to write a book about cannabis and children, watch out. Nobody wants you to do that. Facebook said, no, you can't talk about that. GoFundMe, no. You know, Instagram, no. So it was interesting doing that part. I budgeted $10,000 to get the book published, and I published through BookBaby because it's a self-publishing service, and they got me placed in Barnes & Noble and Amazon and Target. And I spent most of the $10,000 on the illustrations because I think it's really important for a children's book. I wanted it to be something that people hung on to and shared with their kids and their grandkids. And so I didn't realize this when I did it, but it was $7 in cost just for the dust jacket. The dust jacket cost $7. So the book is $34.20 because of all of the color and the paper and everything. but it's doing well. I just looked at my numbers, and I've sold 800 books so far, which is yay, better than most first-time authors. But if you want to write a book, I mean, just go into, and I encourage, we need more books about cannabis. We need more children's books about cannabis. We need lots and lots of literature. But do your research, reach out to me. I'm happy to help anyone that is interested in.
I just put the link in the chat, and your book is going to definitely be on the baby registry gift for everyone that I know. So
Yay, thank you.
Yeah, shout out to you. You exceeded that 200 very well. I couldn't imagine going. It sounds overwhelming to me personally, but I might take you up on that offer. I've had this finance book for like fourth graders in my head for years that I've just been kind of like sitting on. So I might take you up on that, just so you know.
So I just learned this, an interesting thing about books and art and cannabis. And I'm not a lawyer, so I only have a very surface understanding, but in the cannabis industry, it's really difficult to advertise. And we can talk about Clubhouse later if you want, but you know, all the socials and everything, it's very difficult to advertise. But and we have these 280E issues. Sorry, can you hear that? Sorry. Okay. So apparently, if you have a work of art, like a book or a movie or what have you, an NFT, that can be written off. So there's a tricky way to get around the 280E. So talk to your lawyer if you have a cannabis business, and maybe consider putting your efforts into an NFT or a book or a screenplay or something like that. It makes a lot of sense to me for now. You know, who knows? Maybe we're going to get federal legalization next week. Let's cross our fingers.
Yeah, we'll see about that last part, but I love that gem. I didn't realize that. That's a little pro tip, a little hack for the taxes. Let's get into Clubhouse. You started going there. You knew I wanted to go there. From what I know about you, not particularly influential in the traditional social medias, right? You are, just like probably most of us, pretty normal on social media, but you kind of hit your stride on Clubhouse. Talk to me about what happened. How did you kind of find your element here?
Well, you know, social media, I wear all the hats with my company. I have to do all of the things. And social media is a job. I mean, I got up to, I think, 25,000 followers on Clubhouse or Instagram at one point, but it was a job, and it wasn't fun. I didn't like it. And Facebook isn't fun. And you run into all of these, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. I don't understand TikTok, and I don't think I want to. Twitter, well, I was at Google when they were talking about they were going to do Twitter, and I was like, that is the dumbest idea ever. What? 142 characters? Why? But then I heard about Clubhouse, and it was between Christmas and New Year's Eve, and you know, a long year of lockdown. And I had done 50 webinars and Zoom meetings. I had a green room. I had, you know, the State of Cannabis 2-day conference, and I was shocked at how many people wouldn't turn on their cameras on Zoom. I thought, you know, we're so lonely, and you know, we can't go anywhere. I thought everyone would want to have their cameras on, but they didn't. And then here comes this Clubhouse, and it's like talk radio. I was like, whoa, what is this? And I just happened to, I accidentally started a room my first day. I pushed this button, I was like, and this room opens up, and all of a sudden I had 300 people in the room. And we started talking about cannabis and stuff, and it went on for 5 hours, and it just blew me away. And then I was in this room, and Damon John from Shark Tank came in, and he was like, well, you know, it's between Christmas and New Year's, and I'm just checking this thing out. I heard about it, and I think it's kind of cool. We'll see where it goes. And then the next day, he had a room with all of his C-suite people in there, and he was like, okay, I get Clubhouse. I am all in with Clubhouse. This is the next best thing. And they had a room about public speaking, and he started drinking, and he got really drunk, and it went on for 4 hours instead of 1. And I ended up connecting with the guy that books the people for the Shark Tank, and he's going to do a panel at my next in-person event. And I just started meeting all of these people that I would never, ever, ever get a chance to even talk to. Dane Cook, you know, whoever. There's so many people that I connected with on Clubhouse that I would have never had connected with. And so I did a lot of research. I spent 90 hours a week just researching, you know, what's hot on Clubhouse, what are the rules, what are the policies, and I found out that they're very cannabis friendly, so, and psychedelic friendly. So I just went all in. I ended up going into this room called News. And the guy that started that room is friends with the founder of Clubhouse. And I just watched his format, and he called me up on his stage the first week of the show. And I didn't, you know, I was like, I don't know what to do. But I just read off a headline, and he started bringing me up every single day. And I became the cannabis correspondent for his show. And I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to do a spin-off of your show and do the cannabis news. And it's just really been so much fun, and it's been really successful. It's a great vehicle for the cannabis industry if you learn how to work it properly. But they are very cannabis friendly. You can talk about cannabis. You can, I think you can even say, hey, we've got a store here, and these are the prices, and this is what you do with it. You can't do that on any other social media. So I strongly suggest that people get in as early as they can, and just you know, work Clubhouse for all you've got, and hit me up. I'll help you. Happy to, you know, give you whatever tips I have.
I'm curious, how much time do you put on Clubhouse a day now? And like, how much is like prep, your own club or your own room, and then other rooms?
Well, now it's not nearly as much as it was in the beginning. I was spending literally 90 hours a week for the first month because I wanted to learn how to be a good moderator, and I wanted to see what was working. Finding, you know, I've produced a lot of cannabis panels, and finding a good moderator is really hard. I'm sure you all know hosts and moderators, it's really a difficult job. So I spent a lot of time learning how to be a good moderator, because it's hard to find one. But so I spent a lot more time in the past. Now I just spend time in that newsroom, because I want to keep that up, because the founder of Clubhouse is in there all the time, and I want to make sure that he knows who I am. I'm hoping that our room, the State of Cannabis News Hour, gets picked up for the next pilot season, because I think that we're doing a really great job. But I don't go into hardly any other rooms anymore, because there's a lot of people that are just having these rooms that are pretty meaningless. They're just, you know, everybody's sitting around going, what are you smoking on? I don't know, what are you smoking on? It's like, come on, you guys. Yeah, this is, you know, if you want to use Clubhouse, you have to provide really provocative content. And ours is a fast-paced show in 1 hour, and we're very strict about, you know, we end right on the hour. We don't want to waste anybody's time. We give the headlines, we give some quick analysis, and we're a little more Howard Stern and not so much Martha Stewart. You know, there is, I like to joke, there's swearing and nudity, which of course there isn't because there's no video. But, you know, we have fun, but we deliver what you need to know in 60 minutes every weekday.
As we mentioned at the top of the show, I jumped in today and I was highly impressed. It was the most efficient room I have ever been in. Actually, the week that you got in your Clubhouse hole, I was also in my Clubhouse hole. I think I was putting up like 40 hours and like just listening to it as I went to sleep. It was weird, but I got out of it for the exact same reason. I was a room jumper. I was in conversations about NFTs, and then conversations about Ethereum, and then conversations about cannabis, and then New York cannabis, California, and it all got really a lot for me. And it was basically for those reasons that you mentioned. So the fact that your show, and there was a culture show that I would tap in on, and that show was done really well. They had like Gary Vee and some of the Shark Tank people on there. So I need to go back and explore some of these more produced high-level shows. Synbio Beta, that one's a really good one. I actually join that one every now and then. But yeah, kudos to you. I really do hope your pilot gets picked up.
Yeah, I especially love it because my problem with Clubhouse is just dealing with like off-topic shit, or like, to your point, Susan, when people are like, well, what are you smoking on? I'm like, quite frankly, I don't care what you're smoking right now. I was here for the information. Whereas it definitely is valuable for other people just to like talk to people about what they're doing. My teammates know this, Lulu and Peter knows this. I'm like, hey, it's time to start. Let's get to the shit that we came here to talk about. And I get very impatient and frustrated if it's any other way. So I appreciate that about your show, but that's why it's hard for me personally to like fully adopt Clubhouse.
Well, you just need to, you know, find the right shows and support them. But yeah, we were joking the other day. Somebody said, I can't believe you flushed so-and-so. And I said, I would flush Snoop. You know, I mean, we've got 60 minutes and we've got a lot of news to get through. So, you know, that I don't believe in wasting people's time. We're not going to be around. And I truly believe in I was going to say cannabis, which I do, Clubhouse. You know, I believe it's the future, especially on the news piece. You know, Paul Davidson said early on, that's what he wants to see on Clubhouse. It's like talk radio meets LinkedIn meets news. I think Clubhouse is the future of the news. I used to be a cable news junkie. I have not watched the news since I found Clubhouse. And I think it's going to be around for decades. And that's why I jumped in and I all in, you know, because the thing about Clubhouse is that I love, and I think everyone else loves, is that you can multitask. You can be driving. You can be, the first 2 weeks that I was on Clubhouse, I painted my entire house while I was working. You know, while I was on Clubhouse, I was listening and learning. You can be in your garden. You can, you know, it's the multitasking, I think, that is so interesting, and also getting the personal stuff from people, and also the access to people that you would never get access to.
Yeah, definitely. I'm curious to see what happens. I saw their new user numbers were skyrocketing and just plummeted in like the last month. So I'm curious to see, they're getting into like the real territory of users here. And it's kind of that inflection point where they gotta kind of put up or shut up and see if they're really going to be a disruptor. Before we go, I just want to know any tips you have for people that either want to be a Clubhouse influencer or big on Clubhouse, or people that want to be moderators, both in Clubhouse or out of it. Any tips for people?
The first tip for Clubhouse is your username. It's Clubhouse doesn't, the rules are different on Clubhouse. Like, they don't really care if you're a celebrity or not. It's not about how many followers you have. It's about the content that you provide. And, you know, the first 3 lines are what's important. Your profile picture, you want to be consistent with your profile picture so that whenever you jump into a room, because that's the only visual thing that you have. So you want to have a consistent profile picture, then you've got your real name, and then you've got your username. You've got your @ whatever. You don't want to use necessarily your handle that you have on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. My @ is Cannabis Event. I was in there early enough that I got to grab Cannabis Event. So if anyone goes on Clubhouse and searches Cannabis Event, I'm the first person that you see. And that helped me get found. Also, your first 2 lines of your bio, that is the thing that people see. Don't use those fancy fonts, because those fancy fonts aren't seen. You might as well have nothing. I made that mistake at first. You know, just be really deliberate, and also put a lot of things in your bio, put all of your stuff, because all of that stuff is searchable. Emojis are searchable. Like, put the mushroom. If you want to have psychedelic people follow you, put the mushroom in there. You know, emojis are searchable. So those would be my tips. But if you want to be a moderator in Clubhouse, just make sure that you value everyone's time and leave them hungry. You know, every room that I do, it's like, okay, we got to go. Even though we have the peak number of people in the room, yeah, okay, we got to go. We'll see you tomorrow. You know, but as far as being a moderator for live events or anything else, Zoom meetings, I think the #1 thing is to do your research, know your speakers, you know, just do your homework. Know your content, know your speakers, and then you can be yourself. And you know, I've been to so many, I won't mention any names, it's biting my tongue. But I've been to so many events where the speakers come and they're getting up to the table, sitting down, getting in front of their mics, and that's the first time they ever even met the other panelists. They never even had a single conversation beforehand. Practice, know your speakers, and know your subject matter, and you're going to do really well.
I love it. You guys heard it here. I don't know if you've ever been to one. You definitely haven't been to one of our events on the East Coast. But they're coming soon. So shout out to our audience that's been riding with us for the whole year. We take a lot of pride in our events. They're informative, but we also kind of set the vibe, right? We got our DJO out there. So stay on the lookout, everybody, in YouTube and in Zoom. We will be posting some information about our first in-person event in over a year in New York. But before we wrap here, Peter, can you share what we have coming up next week?
Next week is the end of the month. We're wrapping our features of Marijuana Mamas. We had the lovely guest of Amani at the Hippie Mom, who will talk to us about her journey in cannabis and as an influencer on Instagram and as a mother of a child with autism. And then we have Chaneli Pena, who will be talking to us, who is a chef, and be talking to us about herbs and food and motherhood of a young child, and how she talks about cannabis with her child. And so it's going to be a really great conversation, tying together different herbal remedies for things like autism, behavior management, how diet affects our behavior. I'm really excited for it. It's also, I believe they're both Dominican, so we got some Platano power for the one time on Revel. So I'm really excited for it. But please join us next week. If you have any questions or anything you want to see, let us know.
Thank you, Peter. Once again, shout out to all the Marijuana Mamas. I literally cannot imagine what it's like, and we really appreciate you all. We really appreciate everybody in the audience, like I said, in Zoom and on YouTube, and those that are going to watch us on YouTube later. And of course, Susan, we really, really appreciate your time You, I think, are doing tons of Zooms and Clubhouses all the time, and we know that your time is precious. So we're very grateful, and thank you for spending the last hour with us.
Thank you for having me, and please invite me to your event. I'd love to come.
Oh, coming your way.
Yay. I love cannabis.
All right, Oscar, the floor is yours, bro.